Welcome to Fierce 4 Fun. My name is Adita Lang and I am your Fierce 4 Nutrition and Wellness Director. Today we are going to be working on a couple of Pilates movements and hopefully help you fine-tune some intricate details that are going to improve your class and enhance it for all of your students. So let's get started. Today our topic is the pelvis. So your pelvis stays centered by a grouping of muscles. Your erectors, your abdominals, your hip flexors, and your hip extensors. And together they keep your pelvis centered. One of our biggest challenges though is that when we stretch and do movements and we want to make those movements large, we tend to take our pelvis out of alignment and we kind of shortchange ourselves in some of the benefits of the movements we're going to do. So here we go. I'm going to have you lie down on the floor. And all I want you to do is take the base of your palm, place it up on your hip bones, and take your fingertips down towards your pubic bone. And your goal is that this be parallel to the floor. Most people push their pubic bone way up in the air, and so now their fingers are shooting up. And so this isn't necessarily level. So what I want you to do is work on pressing that pubic bone down. Now when that occurs, you have your arch of your back is going to come off the floor, and that's okay, because then what I want you to do is to compress your rib cage in, which is tightening up your abdominals, and that's going to protect and secure your back. Now the minute we bend our knees, our back wants to push down into the floor. When that happens, again, our pubic bone goes up. So once again, I want you to work on pushing that pubic bone out and away from you, creating the arch, but closing in the rib cage with the abdominal so that protects your spine. Now here your pelvis is in perfect alignment. Many times for movement we're going to take it out of alignment, but I want you to be able to place it right back in because that's where the benefits occur. So let's take something simple as just a basic stretch. If I'm going to stretch my knees into my chest, the average person is going to try to pull so hard that they're going to take their pelvis again out of alignment. I need you to push the pubic bone down into the floor. Keep it there. Keep the ribs tight and the abs in, and then stretch your knees in. That's going to give you the benefit of the full stretch. The same thing would go with the legs up in the air. If my pubic bone is up, I'm shortchanging myself. I'll feel it in my hamstrings, but not necessarily as much as I should. So I need to force my pubic bone into the floor, rib cage contracted with the abs. Yes, there's a little bit of space underneath my back, but that's okay. And you stretch from there. So as you're trying to pull and stretch your legs towards you, you actually should also try to push your pubic bone away from you. And that's going to give you the maximum stretch in your hamstrings. And the exact same principle would go when we cross our leg over. So we cross our leg over, and most people work on really trying to stretch in. But again, you're shortchanging yourself. So you position yourself with that pubic bone down, and then as you're pushing your pubic bone towards the floor, you pull the knee towards you. That's going to give you a maximum stretch in your hip. And the same thing would apply for the other side. So let's talk about some basic movements in Pilates. As a warm-up, even before I get into the 100, I like to get people to be very aware of their pelvis. So we just start off by anchoring our shoulder blades into the floor and just tilting our pelvis up and exaggerating it down and feeling it roll through and back up and back down. And it's going to feel a little bit awkward and unusual for most people who kind of remain in during their day in chairs and their back is out of alignment to begin with. But the more you get them to move, the more the spine moves. The more the spine moves, the more nutrition actually gets into that spine. So here we have it. You have them do just a few so that they can feel the pubic bone hit the floor. And then once we get it there, we're going to keep it there. And now we're going to work on our ribs, and we're going to teach people how to pull them in. Your goal is to contract your abdominals with your rib cage to the point where there's no space to grab onto the ribs. You know how sometimes we pull in from our abdominals and we can stick our fingers under our ribs? That's not what we want. We want our rib cage and our abdomen to be flush, to be one solid piece. So when we can squeeze our ribs in tight without disturbing this pelvis, then we've got our spine protected and we have our pelvis in just the right alignment. Okay? Now, from there you would go to all your movements. You could go to your 100. The minute you crunch up though, your back is going to be flat, but the key is not to allow the pelvis to shift up. So those are two different things that occur, because we can flatten our back by using our pelvis, or we can flatten our back by lifting our upper body. So when it comes to any form of a crunch movement, it's always about lifting the upper body. That will flatten your back out, but keeping that pubic bone down and away from you, pushing straight out. So when the legs come up, here you are. So now when you look at a lot of your Pilates movements, your form and technique and your range of motion is going to be dictated about what's going on with the spine. So if I have weak abdominals, I wouldn't be able to hold my legs up without creating an arch in my back. Okay, so that means that that alignment might not be for me. So maybe for a beginner, you're going to start with the knees in, still keeping that pubic bone away from you and up in the crunch. And then you could do your 100 from here. As they advance further, their legs would go up, 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 then out, 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 as long as their back remains flat to the mat. So that's going to be where your progressions come in. So now when we're still talking about this pubic bone and our pelvis, take something as basic as a bridge. Okay? A bridge, we tend to get carried away in squeezing up through our glutes. Think more about lifting from your pelvis. And when your pelvis is up and out, same thing occurs. Your pubic bone is in line with the big hip bones here, right? It's not tucked under, so your belly's not sunk in. It's all a nice straight line, and that straight line can be anywhere. So if I'm a beginner, that straight line is here, and as I advance more, the straight line can be up here. Now the key to this is, what else is going to interfere with the alignment of our pelvis? Our hip joint. So now on this note, you need to make sure that your thighs are shooting straight out. A lot of times we tend to we're not thinking about it. So we get up in our bridge and our legs go out or our knees go in, and that's going to shift your pelvis around. So your goal is, if you really think about it, my knees should be directly over my feet, and my feet should be the distance of my hip joints. And then all of that should line up. Then you start thinking about, where is this pubic bone in regards to my pelvis? The ribs again contract in where they're nice and flush, and then my back is protected. And this movement can be high, or the same thing could happen down low if I'm not strong enough, and that's okay. And then from there you can do any movement you want. So now a lot of times in class I like to bring one leg up. When it comes to Pilates movement, your goal is to try to throw your body out of alignment so that the small stabilizer muscles have to kick in. So if I'm in perfect alignment here, everything is nice and tight, and I pull my left knee up and my hips fall, that's a weakness, right? So maybe if I'm a beginner student, that might not be the movement for me because I can't hold it up. But if I've gotten myself now to a point that I've got everything centered and I can pull that knee up and I can hold it there, great. Because this alone is an exercise, because it's all about the pelvis. It's not about keeping this leg up. I think that's one of the things I see with many instructors. They think about keeping the leg up and moving it over. And that's not what the purpose of the movement is. The purpose of the movement is to engage this core from every direction and every angle to make it stronger. So we're up, we pull one leg up. This could be an exercise for a basic person. If somebody's a little bit stronger, we're up here. But all of it is about keeping this pelvis balanced, right? And parallel, without tucking the hips under, without tucking them the other way, without lifting one hip up. It's all about balance. And then you can add a leg and you can pull in. This would be a much more advanced movement. And then you could work that leg way down and bring it back up. But if you notice, the pelvis is not moving an inch. This stays all in place. So each progression would be your way through. So when you look at a basic bridge, the bridge itself is the very beginner. From there you work on one knee up, and from there you now start to extend the leg up with each progression as the person gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Then you work on movement. So the movement's going to come for the even stronger person. And then you make the movement larger, and that's going to be for the even stronger person. And then we would do the same thing on the other side. So now, let's try this. Let's take a sideways motion. Here we are, our pelvis, it's the exact same thing. So if I've anchored my head down, kept it in alignment, I need my pubic bone to push away from me. There's a natural arch in my spine. My rib cage is really tight, and I can work on lifting a leg. So your key here, it's real easy to notice what someone's range of motion should be. Because the minute they lift that leg and the hips fall, they've gone too far. And everybody's going to have different strengths and weaknesses. So someone might be able to only lift a couple of inches. Someone else might be able to lift more. But your goal is that this pelvis not move at all, because that's what's going to force these little intricate muscles to kick in. So here we go. We're lying down. We could flex our foot, and we could move forward, and we could move back. Now this bottom leg extended, that's going to be more advanced. If I bend the knee, it's more of a beginner. And if I bend the knee and bring it forward, that's even more of a beginner move, because it keeps me more stable, bigger stable space. So the more I minimize my stability space, the harder it's going to be. And if my leg is straight out, that's even harder. So let's start with just a middle pose here. We've got the leg straight out, our pubic bone is away from us, our head is relaxed. We can work on bringing the leg forward and bringing the leg back. The average person is going to shift their hips back as their leg moves forward and push their hips forward as their leg goes back. Again, the goal, keep it steady. Don't let it go anywhere. And you'll notice how all of these muscles have to anchor in and work so much harder in order to keep this pelvis in one spot, one secure spot, right there. There we go. So let's see. If you wanted to take this into a brief routine, let's work it through. We'd start off with just a basic pelvic tilt to get people to feel where their pelvis is. Just a basic pelvic tilt. You could hold that down from there, keep it nice and steady, rib cage in, take your arms, place your palms up to try to take some of the weight out of the hands, and now work on tucking it under. So this time we're going to tuck under from our hips. So tucking it under, working your way up to a bridge, and then placing it back in line again. So I tucked it under for a brief moment, but I brought my spine back into the right alignment. Then I tucked it back under one vertebra at a time, and I sit it down, and when I get down, I've got to push through my pelvis to bring my pubic bone back centered. And then I tuck under again, and I roll up, and I have it shooting straight out again. And we tuck under, and we bring it right back down, and we press all the way through, getting that arch in the back, but yet keeping the ribs and the abdominals real tight. And we can come back up and keep it right here. And now we can work on bringing one knee in, and set that down, and bring the other knee in, and set that down. And we can go one and one. And when we want to advance this even further, now we'll keep it on one side. And we can shoot the leg out, and we can bring it back in. Again, keeping this steady, no motion, both hips parallel, pubic bone pushing away. And I can work that right back down, and I can take it to the other leg, and I can press it out and in. Straight out and straight in. And bring that down. Stepping both feet down now press your back into the floor. Push the pubic bone down into the ground and stretch the knees in. So as I'm stretching my knees in, I'm pushing my pubic bone away. And I can extend those legs right there and stretch that in. Again, pubic bone pushes out and away. And bring it back to center. So let's take this. If I wanted to, right here, I could come up into a crunch. Pubic bone is shooting away. I can take my hands behind my head to support right there. Again, you don't have an arch in your back because you're up into that crunch, but your pubic bone is still pushing out. And you press one side out and bring it in, and press the other side out and bring it in. Your lower abs are going to be having a heyday right now by pushing that pubic bone away. If we tuck it under, it's not going to kick into that lower ab as much. So really push the pubic bone away, ribs in tight, one leg and the other. And if you wanted to take that to a full bicycle where you twist, you can, but again, this has to stay centered. And when you twist, you think about twisting more from your shoulder than your actual elbow. Come back to center and set that down. Press those knees in as you push the pubic bone away, and slowly roll that up. So hopefully that gave you a little inspiration to make just a couple of minor changes that are going to change the degree of how your participants are actually feeling the exercises and how your participants are benefiting from those movements. This was your Pilates segment. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a train hard and play hard day. Bye for now.